Where's the boxing come from?
Well, boxing is something I've really only been interested in for about a decade. But however, it was the first scene I wrote in this book. I had two guys in a ring. They were young adults as opposed to young boys, as the novel stands now. And these guys were resolving some dispute between them by using boxing as a sort of alternate dispute resolution technique. And I knew that they were involved outside the ring in an architectural project together. That was the sort of seminal idea of the novel. When the boxing scene it ended up sort of growing out to become like a full first book, a recollection of both these men, something that they had done in their youth. But originally, I had them in the ring as men.
The two central characters,
Graham and Elliot.
Half brothers.
Half brothers. That's right. Yeah, different mothers, same father. Father, a very famous architect, now deceased.
Sort of a Frank Lloyd Wright-ish kind of guy?
Well, from the standpoint of personality, I think he's his own man, except that he shares a kind of egocentric personality with some that is sort of popularly associated with the mega architect. But I did not model him on anybody, Frank Lloyd Wright or any of the other famous self-centered architects that we've read about over the years. From the standpoint of his work, I was inspired by a number of different architects, and I sort of, in Packer Gordon, what we have is sort of a mashup of a couple of different architectural styles. And it may not really be that appealing to architectural historians because I've stolen bits from here, bits from Bertold Lubetkin and details from Eileen Gray. And strictly with respect to his residential architecture, I was greatly inspired by the work of Arthur Erickson. And I chose as a writer to sort of amalgamate those ideas, even though architectural experts may find that that's a bit of a clash.
The two brothers, Graham and Elliot, hard to get more different.
Yeah,
in some ways, but very much the same in others.
Well, yeah, I mean that's the key right there. I'm trying to, as I cast their similarities and differences, what I'm really trying to explore is notions of inheritance. Each of these guys are the involuntary recipients of certain qualities that their father had. And yet there's another set of qualities that they might have admired in their father and wished to have inherited, which maybe they did and maybe they didn't. And to me, this is very much the nature of inheritance, intergenerational inheritance. As you look back on the characters that came before you in your family and you think, I'm a lot like that person in this way, but I wish I was more like them in this way. Those two sets of inheritances don't always overlap. That's very much the case with Graham and Elliot. They got some stuff, and they didn't get other things that they might have liked to.
As long as it is for the father to get the boys to work out their differences in the ring using boxing, it doesn't work out any better when they try to work out their differences using architecture.
These guys are, it would seem it is dictated on a cellular level that they can't get along. There's something in the organics of how they're made. They just cannot make it work.
The building that's the subject of, and they're trying to restore, change, do something with this building. It turns out it's the father's first building. And describe it, because it seems really weird to me.
Well, it's 3 clean, modern floors, linked by a central staircase that's a sort of a spiral, inspired a bit by a similar staircase in a house built by a woman named Eileen Gray. Her staircase is actually smaller, and it's hidden away in the back of the house, and mine is blown much into a wider structure that anchors the house from the very center. But that structure is, for some time, very confusing to the architectural historians and to the brothers themselves when they come to restore it, because it appeared perhaps never to have been finished. For one thing, it's lacking a kitchen, so nobody knows if it was intended to be a residence or maybe if it was intended to be something else entirely. What I was trying to do with that is create a structure where form and function appeared to have been severed at some point in the past. We no longer had a clear sense of what the architect wanted this structure to be used for, and that left great questions and great uncertainty in the minds of people who were called on to restore it.
This is a weird question. I'll ask it anyway, because I do space like that. What piece of architecture do you think your book's most, like if you said, my book is this building?
Oh, that's a good question.
Or a really bad one. I'm not sure.
Well, I'm going to give a slightly oblique answer. But there is a good reason for it. I will say, because you've asked me a question that puts me right on the spot. I had never thought about this before. I will say the Mac Blow building on Georgia Street in Vancouver, and I'll say it for the following reason. That building was a building that I did not understand when I looked at it for all of, let's say, the first 10 years I lived in Vancouver. It was a concrete, brutal, arrogant structure in my view, and it looked like a pretty difficult place to work in. A few years on now, I look at it and I can see the idea of it. I can see how the recesses of the window cavities, which are deeper on the lower floors than they are on the higher floors, create a kind of as the sun goes past the building during the day, the shadows kind of spiral almost in a clock-like fashion within the window recesses, and a really beautiful overall aesthetic object is created by that movement. When you're writing a novel at the beginning, you have no idea what you're doing. So to that extent, as this book built itself and I began to understand how it was I was building parallels between architecture and boxing, how it was that my characters were growing towards the conclusion, how it was that I was going to represent architecturally the attempt at reconciliation between them, all of these questions very slowly answering themselves over 4 years, the book came to have some parallels to that building.
The book is Story House. I've been speaking with the author Timothy Taylor, and Story House, published by Knopf Canada.